This is the intro jingle. This is the K-pop Daebak Show with Eric Nam. Ooh.
Hey guys, welcome to the K-pop Daebak Show with me, Eric Nam. This is a very special episode. Today we're going to be talking about my new album. Before we begin, why it matters, why now, why did I do it, and why in all English. I've been doing a lot of press. I've been doing a lot of interviews just about why this album matters at all, not only to me personally, but in the grander scheme of Asian American identity and culture, and just about how I was raised and grew up. And so if that interests you, this episode is perfect for you. If you're looking for a quick 3 song suggestions, then all you're gonna get is go listen to my album because it's the best album ever. And that's pretty much all you need to know. Before we get started, please go ahead and please leave us comments and ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us on Spotify or whatever platform you're listening to and from, and connect with us.
We'll probably be posting this whole thing on YouTube, right?
Maybe.
I feel like we should.
Okay.
So maybe really emphasize, like, go check out the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed,
right.
subscribe, because
Right.
video.
And also, if you want to see this entire interview, watch it. It'll be on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Dive Studios and please subscribe there. We have all of our content on there so you guys can watch it and listen to it and connect with it. And please leave us comments. We read through all of them. And connect with us on all of our socials at Daebak Show. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to talk about Eric Nam's new album, Before We Begin.
You're Eric Nam.
Me?
Yeah.
I am.
You're Eric Nam.
I am Eric Nam.
Okay. Well, I think your album is very correctly named because Before We Begin,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about Before We Begin, you had an interesting kind of, because like I think lately more and more in all these podcast interviews that you've been doing, you yourself are very interested in how other people felt growing up Asian American in spaces that wasn't, maybe you were the only minority or the
Right.
only Asian minority.
Right.
So like, how do you think that's impacted yourself, not just creatively, but just like how you navigate yourself
Right.
around the world?
So, I mean, I was born and raised in Atlanta, and I never, so I was born and raised in Atlanta, and people who have been keeping up with my career know that I always felt like I was never properly represented in mainstream media, be that TV, film, music. And so for me, being a musician or a celebrity or whatever was never a realistic opportunity for me. It was really just a dream. And I think that really informed the way how I grew up. I never really thought to maybe I should really learn how to sing or maybe I should learn how to dance. It was just go study, get a job, and live the Asian American immigrant dream. And that was pretty much all that I felt was really available to me. Not to say that is in any way bad or a bad path, but for me, I think at a certain point I felt stifled by it and I felt like I was limited. So I think that's why I am so interested in listening to other people's stories about how they were born and raised, how they identified as Asian Americans, any struggles that they went through, because I certainly had a fair share of them.
So, like, in terms of just representation, did you think as a kid you just kind of accepted that you wouldn't see yourself up like on a stage or like on a screen, or did you have to seek it out? For example, like VHS tapes with Eddie, watching K-pop performances,
Right.
you know?
So no, I never really thought that I would be able to be on stage or do anything in media or entertainment. Like, the only access I had to people who look like me doing music was by renting VHS tapes at the corner market after church on Sunday. And I would watch Music Bank or Music Core reruns from VHS tapes. And I guess for me, like, my way of kind of dealing with it outside of just watching those is like, I think I took more of like an academic approach to it. So I looked back and I think back to my high school and college days, and my junior or senior year thesis in high school was about Asian misrepresentation in media. So if you think about it traditionally in TV and film, Asians were first portrayed as caricatures. We were played by like white people with their eyes like glued shut and like with weird accents. And then like growing up, I felt like the only people that we had to look at were like Jackie Chan and Lucy Liu, which is great, but like it's all just martial arts stuff. Again, not bad, but like we are so much more than that. We have so many more stories. We have so many more. So we have such a diverse groups of people within Asia and the overarching category of Asians. And I just never felt like we were properly portrayed. And so I think going into college as well, it was, I guess all of my upbringing, it was like, learn how to fit in any situation, learn how to fit in with people of all different backgrounds, all socioeconomic backgrounds. But then I guess at some point I always felt like, okay, but like, what is mine? What is Asian? What is Asian American? And I always had a difficult time kind of understanding that. And when I realized that it's because we haven't been given the opportunity to truly define ourselves, because we haven't been able to fully see our capabilities in media, I realized how important that was. So by the time senior year of college came around, I had been asked to, run for student body president at Boston College. I had been asked, when I said no, they asked me to take over entertainment for student body. I said no to that, mainly because my interest was in leaving an impact by founding an organization, the Boston branch of Collaboration. And that's pretty much a platform, a talent show for Asian Americans to showcase their talents in front of a live audience. And the idea is that through this, we can increase representation, provide more platforms, and people can develop their talents and skills. And this is kind of like right at the peak of when YouTube and like Asians ran YouTube as well. So it's like a lot of energy and a lot of synergy coming from the Asian American community. So looking back at it, like that was my way of saying, okay, this is the one way that I can leave a physical and cultural impact in Boston, where I went to school. And I think back on it now, and I think that's why, in high school, I did the theses. In college, I was part of like Collaboration. And then I think back to when I debuted here in Korea, and people always ask me like, what are your goals as a singer, as a rookie? And I had two. It was always like, first, like make it so that I can do good things with a bigger platform, philanthropic stuff like climate change or education or that kind of stuff. The other thing was to make it so that I could try to make it back home in the States. And I think that was, in a way, it was very hopeful, very optimistic kind of dream. But at the same time, it was my way of trying to say, like, even if music works out and whatever, everything should have a purpose. Everything should have a reason behind it. And my reason was to, in my case, increase the opportunities for other Asian and Asian Americans in mainstream media.
Did you ever think, though, at least personally, maybe when you were younger and there were more frustrating moments like this where you saw being like Asian or Asian American as like baggage, right? Where like it was really limiting, or like you had to choose whether to really embrace it, and like have it be really a strong part of your identity, or like did you not like feeling like you had to even address it and you couldn't just be Eric, right?
I remember distinctly having points, especially in middle school, where I would talk to my dad. I'm like, I don't know what or who I am, because we're born in America, so we're American, but like I can't really speak Korean, and like I don't know anything about Korea, so I'm not really Korean. But people in the States kind of see me as other. Like I literally remember in elementary school, people were like, "Are you Chinese or Japanese?" I'm like, "I'm Korean." Like, what is that? And it was just a place of just ignorance. Like people just don't know. People just didn't know. And so for me, it was like having to fit into certain categories and certain groups of friends. Like I was just always confused. Like, and I think when you're younger, you have a tendency to try to like put yourself into a box of like, I'm a jock, or I'm a nerd, or I'm a musician, or I'm a whatever. But for me, like I didn't fit into any of those categories. And so that was incredibly confusing for me. And then even at like church, for example, you go to church, and I always felt like they were the kids who were a little more like always wore street and like spoke a little more street. And then there was like the very clean cut kids who just very, academic and like played violin and flute. And it's just not that we have to confine ourselves to certain labels or buckets, but as a teenager, I was always confused.
Okay. And then, you talked about college really trying to like help other Asian Americans like find a stage for themselves to show off like their creative talents and express themselves. And then India happens, and then K-pop star, basically the motherland calls, right?
Right.
So where were you personally, like mentally, about like wanting to be a performer, or how, like, what percentage were you totally just accepting like this is a hobby, I'm gonna go back to Deloitte and be a consultant?
Right. I mean, so after graduation, I had a job at Deloitte Consulting, and I asked for a year off. And during that year off, I was going to go to India to do social enterprise fellowship. I got there. The program, honestly, it just wasn't right for me. So I was like ready to go back to Deloitte early. And then I got an email from Korea that says, hey, you want to come to it's like an American Idol equivalent in Korea. And at that point, I was like, sure, why not? It's a free flight home, right? I can go back to New York and like start my job early, and I can just like say hi to my relatives while I'm in Korea for a minute. All the while, like in the back of my head, I was always excited about the potential of becoming like a singer, songwriter, but I never thought it would actually happen. You never think this is actually going to happen.
Did you feel like you weren't allowed to want to be that? Like, I feel like a lot of things is like the idea like we can't do this. We're like we're not allowed to. We're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So were you kind of like tempering your own expectations because you were like, well, I'm American now. I'm not allowed to be a singer.
I think there was definitely an aspect of myself trying to manage my own expectations, but also I just don't think I was ever allowed to dream that way, to dream of being like, I could become a K-pop star, I could become a singer. Like when you watch American Idol back at home, it was always like, the white girl or the white guy from the Midwest that sings country that wins.
Yeah.
I love Kelly Clarkson, I love Carrie Underwood, I love those people, but that's just, that's majority of America. And so it was never like a realistic expectation. Now, when I thought about like, what if I were to do well? What if I won? The part of that scared me was that it was so unstable and unpredictable, and my life would change completely. And that was the most terrifying part of it. And so I don't think I really ever allowed myself to really just go for it. I was always more practical, very level-headed, and very almost academic about how I approached it.
I think you're still like that now about many things.
I am. I'm very, very calculated in terms of how I decide to do certain things or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably part of it is just my personality. And I think when it comes to personality, like I did a big press round the other day, and I was telling the reporters, I was like, look, I grew up in the States. My parents barely spoke any English. So, and I'm sure a lot of kids of immigrants have this experience. Like your parents or your guardians don't speak English. You have to do everything that a parent is supposed to do and just kind of translate and be the middleman. But for me, I never wanted to be left behind, or I never wanted to feel like other. So I would go above and beyond myself to make sure that I'm doing everything on my own and I'm not reliant or dependent on anybody. That definitely probably made it easier for my brothers. But for me, it kind of just crafted me into this individual who's just very, very individualistic. And for me, it just really crafted me into this individual who's very, very focused and individualistic. I don't want to say selfish, because I think they're two different things. I think individualistic and very like motivated is probably like the better phrasing for that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people confuse being individualistic as like running with your emotions, which you don't do. You don't run with your emotions, you run with like your logic of like what is the cost of benefit and stuff like that. And so in that moment in time when K-pop star reached out and you were going through that experience, clearly this was like, okay, cost for benefit. It might work for me to try to be a K-pop star in a country I'm not from versus my own, neck of the woods, like in America, because that's just what the situation was, especially back then, right? Where there seemed to be more of a platform for you? Or how did you feel about that? Like, why Korea, basically?
So just to be factual, the show was called, what's it called?
Wasn't that K-pop star?
No, it was called Star Audition is probably the easiest way to
Star
go.
Audition.
So when I was on the Star Audition program, I was lucky in the sense that I already had a job. So I had like a backup plan. And this was like a complete hobby to me. And so I took it seriously because I wanted to see like how far I could take it and how well I could do. But my expectations were very low. Think about it. Like, I can't speak Korean. I cannot understand what people are saying to me. I have issues with pronunciation. I don't know what's really going on. But, you know, people seem to like the way I sing. And so it was interesting. I was very, very lucky, but I really had very low expectations. It was just like, have fun, and we'll probably just go back to work kind of thing. But once I got to the top 5, and once I, decided that I was going to pursue music here as a career, it was like, okay, how do we make it? How do we do this? Fast forward a couple years, every time I'm in the States or anytime I do an interview with people back in the States, I was like, why did you go to Korea to pursue music? For me, it wasn't a choice, right? I think if I had started it in the States, like, I'd probably be unemployed with like 0 income right now. Because even now, I don't see major labels in the States taking chances on Asian or Asian American artists who aren't BTS or Blackpink or huge mega multi-million, follower K-pop stars.
Yeah.
Right? It's about I think they're very, very risk averse, which I understand. It's business. But if you think they're risk averse now, think about how risk averse they were 8, 9, 10 years ago. There's no way somebody's going to take a chance on some Asian kid from the South. It's not going to happen. And so I was very realistic about that. If I really want to pursue music, if I really want to like try to move culture forward, if I want to just give it a shot, and I know that I'm like employable because I have a job, then I might as well try it here. If it works out, I can try to reverse engineer it back to the States. And the States or the West is at that point, hopefully open-minded and forward-thinking enough to say, okay, cool, we get it. Like, we could try it. And that's enough for me to have said, like, I did what I set out to do in the first place.
Yeah. So up to this point of having like an all-English album, right? You've had to basically have to fit yourself into the system that is the Korean music industry, right? Which is unique in itself.
Right.
And so what were obviously like the growing pains of like being told you have to sing certain genres, especially in the beginning of your career, types of songs, content, how you sing, and like how that affected you as you were just personally developing as an artist with taste.
Right. I mean, when I first got to Korea, I think what I realized is like I was in constant like panic mode, like freak out mode for years. Because I didn't know what was going on. I was always put on TV shows. I don't know what people are saying to me. I don't know why they're laughing at me. Like, I just didn't understand stuff. And they would keep putting me on shows, giving me scripts, and I can't even pronounce it right. I can barely read the scripts. So for years, I would have like borderline like freakouts live on air because I can't figure it out. But that was like pretty much my training process. I didn't really get vocal training. I didn't really get like, I think dance training, they gave up on me so quickly. They're like, this dude's not going to make it. They were very, very honest with me. They're like, you're very old to be starting this industry. I was 2012. I was 23. And they said I was too old, like, to be doing like idol stuff. So it's a different industry. It's a different culture. It's a different society. And on top of that, I can't really speak the language. There's always misunderstandings of like, you are too American, you sing too pop, you sing too white, you don't understand how we do things because you're not from here. And a lot of it would be used against me to their advantage, which is unfortunate, but that was just like the way it was done. And so I had a really hard time when I first got here. And I don't think I really felt like I had control of my life or career until maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago. That was like the first time where I was like, okay, like I've done what I could do, leave me alone, and let me just kind of take the reins from here. But even getting to that point was a lot of fighting, a lot of struggling, culturally, linguistically, musically, just across everything.
What do you think are the best takeaways though from this kind of like intense boot camp training you've gone through leading up to this album? Like, what do you take away that you're like actually grateful for? You're like, I'm glad I went through that.
I mean, I think if anything, being in Korea, working in the industry, doing so many different things, being on TV, doing radio, doing hosting, doing MCs, doing endorsements, like all these different things, like I'm so grateful and thankful for it. Again, like Korea is the one place that gave me an opportunity and said, okay, you can try to become a singer. We'll give you a label deal, when nowhere else in the world would have given me a shot. And I say this because I know other friends and singers who look like I do who were trying it in the States and it just didn't work out. Some of them had to come here too. And so I think, if anything, starting in Korea, learning to work here, the work ethic, the culture, the speed, the production value, those are things that I think are world class. And I don't think really some things even probably surpasses the States. So for that, I'm incredibly thankful that I developed those skills and that skill set in Korea first. I think also the time that I spent in Korea and all the hardships and struggles I went through has created me and built me into the person that I am today, which is a lot more flexible, very like open-minded, just a lot more skilled in dealing with different situations than I probably was at when I was younger. Musically, obviously, I learned how to songwrite here. I learned how to sing better. I learned how to perform and be in front of a bunch of people. So again, these are skills that I learned here that I'm so thankful for. And then hopefully that they pay off and I can try to use them in other places and other settings around the world.
Yeah. Well, okay, so now we kind of basically got to the point of this album currently that you just released, right?
Mhm.
And so what was there the approach towards this because it's all English? First of all, just like what was like the decision making in that? What was the conversations that had to happen in order to make that decision happen? And two, like, was your approach different making an English album versus Korean songs?
Right. So like I shared earlier, like one of the biggest goals that I had was to be able to try to perform in the States and make it in the States and reverse engineer things back to the States when the timing was right. And I think over the past maybe 2 years, looking at the rise of K-pop on a global scale with BTS and Blackpink and these groups, I think people generally outside of Korea are very, very excited about K-pop and Korean content. I think what struck me was, unfortunately, I think the general public's understanding and knowledge of K-pop is very one-dimensional, and it sticks to this stereotype of everybody has crazy hair, wears crazy clothes, is an amazingly in sync and choreographed, and they're all in groups that are made out of factories, which I think is not true. I think people and artists here just create and function differently. It's just a different system.
But I also think even within Korea, a lot of the artists are like you, whereas like this was the kind of only way, like the only opportunity. It's not to say like they don't have genuine artistry or like wanting to be a real musician. It's just like, well, this is my best shot at doing that.
I mean, look, the members of these groups are incredibly talented, It's just the system here is set up for success when you are in an idol group. And so that's like the best probability chance that you have of making it. And that's why people are going to be going into those groups. Now, what's I found was to be frustrating is that when people in the States or internationally like, oh, you're K-pop, so you must be like this. I'm like, actually, I'm not like that at all. Like I'm so far from that. And it's because that understanding and the stereotypes about K-pop are just that one thing. And so I thought with the timing being so important right now and people being aware and curious about K-pop, it would be a perfect time right now to put out an album in English that tells a completely different narrative from, oh, these like bunch of kids from Korea are coming to the States and like taking over the charts. It's like, oh, well, this dude is Asian American. He was born and raised here. He just happened to start his career in Korea, but he can sing and perform like any other pop artist in the States.
Yeah, because to me, this is a pop album. Like, we can say K-pop, but because it's all English, it might be harder to say that. So, and the thing is, like, K-pop is pop.
Right.
Right? It's hip-hop, it's R&B. So what this is purely, it's a pop album with, like, soul and R&B elements to it, obviously. So, like, did you know, like, musically the direction you wanted to go right off the bat?
I think musically, in the terms of direction, I think part of it is because the perception of K-pop is so like flashy and light in some ways outside of, people who really understand and appreciate K-pop. I wanted to go even deeper musically than I typically would. I also wanted to put music out that sounded a little bit more mature than like what I had been recently doing. And recently, it's probably best to say that it's been very light, pleasant, just pop music. This has, I think, a lot of undertones that are a lot more serious and a little more vulnerable and raw in terms of, speaking sonically.
Do you attribute that to the fact that you could sing the whole song in English, like partially?
I think part of it is, and I think part of the reason that we decided to write that way is because I could just do everything in English and it's easier for me to manage. When I'm doing stuff in Korea, it's a process of taking the songs that I've written in English, translating them or writing new lyrics for them in Korean, and then having the Korean audience understand what I'm trying to say through music is very difficult. I've always found that difficult. That was probably one of the hardest things that I had making it as an artist here, because people were like, what do you, like, you sound like too pop, you sound too buttery, and you sound like, they make it sound like it's a bad thing. I was like, that's just my sound. And maybe in the Korea, they didn't fully get it, but in the States, it's just pop. It's just what everybody listens to. And so for me, there was a lot less pressure in terms of the creative process when it came to the creation of this album. What I focused on really is like, what songs do I feel really good about? What are the messages that I really want to convey? And I guess in terms of the song selection, I wanted to do songs that were very diverse and across the spectrum of different genres. So for me, this was just like the best shot for me to get my sound out there, for people to get introduced to Eric Nam, and maybe just like have them hooked enough so that they are familiar with me and they look forward to new stuff that I'm doing in the future. I didn't want this to like absolutely define me as an artist. And once I get, the right system and the structure in place and we put out an album, then that is what I want to consider and call my start. Yeah.
Well then, favorite song, or not favorite song, the song that took the longest to write and the song that took the least amount of time to write.
So I didn't write all the songs in this album this time around, but all the songs that I did write, we wrote in a day. They were all done in a day.
Which were?
So Love Die Young, Congratulations, Come Through. What else is on that album? There's so many songs. You're Sexy, I'm Sexy, I did not write. Wonder, I did not write. How Am I Doing? I took part in it, but I was in Korea, so we did it over the internet. So they're all a little different, but yeah, they're all just very different songs. I think what people will find when they listen to the songs is that they are, on the surface level, just like love songs. They're about love. But for me, they're a lot deeper. They're a lot more about me being vulnerable and being thoughtful about life. For example, Love Die Young, it looks like just like, please don't let this love die young, just holding on to a relationship that's about to fade out. But for me, when I wrote it, I was in a place where I was just mentally and physically exhausted. Like the last thing I wanted to do was write or work. I just gotten off tour in Europe. I did 12 shows in 18 days, and then I had to go and write a full album. So I'm like stressed. And anytime I walk into a session, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I actually don't want to do anything. Like, I'm like so burnt out, but we need to write this album. So I want to talk about being burnt out and like feeling exhausted. And so the opening lines of Love Die Young is what happens when it's over, when we've breathed our last breath. For me, in that moment, I was more worried and focused on, am I doing this? Am I like, is this career the right career for me? Am I happy? And like, am I good if I just die tomorrow? Like just a lot of random things like existential crisis about like life and happiness. Like those were the places where I was coming from when I wrote that song. So Love Die Young, love in the case for me can be literally romantic love, but can also be about passion. It could be about a certain item or a certain focal point or an idea or an inspiration that is important and essential to you.
Or like love for something.
Yeah, your love for a certain thing.
So could you also apply that to like Congratulations, which is like technically your title track, right? So Congratulations kind of basically like, it's almost like nihilistic. It's like, oh, fuck it, we're breaking up, and you're taking a very like celebratory / like apathetic approach to it.
Yeah.
So like, do you think it applies to like a larger thing beyond like what would be like the obvious like, oh, it's a breakup song, you know?
So Congratulations, when we wrote that song, it was more, I was very like stuck on trying to do very like sad breakup lyrics with a very happy track. I was kind of in that phase. And so that's where like Congratulations kind of came out of. But Congratulations, I don't know. I think what I realized like after having written this song, it was that breakups and like having to say goodbye isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes you're in bad toxic relationships.
Sometimes some people at work.
Sometimes that happens.
Sometimes you quit.
Yeah. Like things like that happen. So like stuff like that happens, and it just, wait, where I'm going. Right. So I think Congratulations is about like, sometimes it's good to get out of things. Sometimes it's good to know when to let go and to move on. And it's just about understanding that and kind of being okay with it. I think we did it with a very tongue-in-cheek, very sarcastic, cynical approach. But I think that's what makes it fun. And I think that's what makes it distinctly a fun pop track. So yeah, that's what Congratulations is.
I feel like it's so memeable.
It is.
It's a very memeable song.
I've thought about it a lot. I want some kids to do some crazy TikTok challenges to it. I just don't know how to do it.
Oh, I've brainstormed.
Really?
Yeah, I won't spoil it here. But because the hook, the chorus is so catchy. Because like you've been playing it in the office a lot before the release, and I didn't know. One, when I first heard it, I didn't realize it was actually you. Second, I didn't realize it was a song that hadn't been released yet. So I was with friends. And I was just like singing to myself, and it's like, congratulations. And they're like, what song are you singing? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Why do I know this?
I don't know what the song is. But it's like a very saddest, because, you know, I commented on your release post, and I said, this is going to be my new Gives You Hell, which is that song by All American Rejects.
Yeah.
And that song is a song that me and my friend, we both went through a breakup at the same time, like drove late at night and like blasted it. Yeah. And so I feel like you could say that this is a very like good like anthem. Right. Like
that's, I mean, I hope it is. I mean, we wanted to, there are a lot of, sonically there are a lot of gang vocals in it. There are a lot of like shouts in it. And we wanted this to be like an easy song to sing along to. It could be anthemic. It could be like the poster child for like a fun like breakup song.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we wrote that song.
Okay. Well, before I think we should wrap, I think you should maybe talk about one song that's like that would be considered like a deep track on the album that you hope gets like a lot of attention, or like it is especially special to you, even though it's not the title track or Love Die Young.
Yeah. I mean, I think this album, like all the songs are incredibly special to me. I think Come Through, for example, that was written kind of thinking of like, you know, I think I was like at a point, I was like, oh man, I want to meet somebody. Like, where would you meet somebody? I guess at a bar. I guess. And like I like literally sat there like, okay, I'm gonna sit at a bar, I'm having a drink by myself, and someone's gonna walk through that door just like a drama. And it's gonna be she's gonna just be like that
This is
perfect. Yeah. Like that's literally like what was going through my head. So that was like, I mean, that was kind of like a fun one. The other ones, like for example, How Am I Doing is like a very retro, like a self introspective. How Am I Doing is more of like an introspective thing of like, obviously, you know, on the surface, this one too is kind of like, how am I doing? Like, am I treating you right? Am I a good boyfriend kind of thing? But for me, it was kind of like, how am I doing? Like, am I actually living life right? Am I doing things okay? It felt almost like a song that I was asking people who listen to it, like, what do you think? Kind of thing. Wonder, I think, is a song anybody can relate to who's been in a relationship where it's like, you're out of the relationship, but you wonder, like, what if, like, I wasn't like this? What if she wasn't like this? What if this had happened? Like, all these different scenarios that you draw up and you wonder if you could have made it again. So I think, again, like a lot of these songs are around the themes of love, but they have a lot of universal messages and issues that they also touch on. So, I mean, I think that part of the other fun part is like a lot of people, as they listen to music, they assign meaning to each song and what it means to them personally. Just because it means something to me does not mean it has to mean something to the person who's listening to it. It can mean something completely and absolutely different. So I think that's part of like the fun thing of me when I read comments and see people understanding and analyzing lyrics. It's like it could mean something about like prom or like a high school teacher. I don't know. A dog. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's just all very, very different. So that's part of the beauty of music.
Well, it seems like initial reception is pretty great, you know, from all sides. And so I know you're going to tour this album. Yeah. So what can people know for now?
Yeah.
And where can people find out more as things progress?
So, yes, thank you so much to all my fans who have been streaming it, who have been supporting it, who have been trending it, playing it to their grandmas and, you know, uncles and whoever. Thank you so much. We are going to be going on tour to Southeast Asia in January. We're doing North America in February, March, and I believe we're doing Latin America end of March, early April as well. So it's going to be quite an extensive tour. If everything goes according to plan, we should be in close to 40 to 50 cities next year. The Southeast Asia leg should be announced maybe right now as this podcast is out. So check ericnam.com. You guys can see all the details on the tour. You can see all the latest merch kind of stuff. Yeah, all the different things you guys can stay updated with. It's an album that I'm super excited to perform for people. And I think playing it live for people was always such a different experience from just recording it and putting out over a streaming platform. So hopefully you guys love it. And hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Yeah, and please watch the music video. The one thing I did also, you know, I said this, I don't know where I said this recently, but one thing that I had been dealing with is I, for a long time, had a difficult time saying like, buy this album, download it, purchase a physical copy, show up. And I say this from a level not of like, I want to make money, but from a level of like respect for creative work. And I think it's very, like, music is the easiest form of work for people to kind of just easily like think about and not think about paying for. But if you watch a movie at a movie theater, you're paying for it. If you watch a TV show, you're paying for it through cable and advertisements.
I'll say, you put in physical labor.
Oh, like, I put in so much
physical labor.
Yeah.
Like actual, you know, blood, sweat, tears. But
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I felt like almost ashamed to be like, please buy this album. But no, I don't feel that way anymore.
You get hella songs for a low price.
Yeah. You guys, it's so cheap compared to like, if you think about what you're getting, it's so cheap. But like for real, like I just think this is kind of like a moment where, you know, content has become so cheap and so disposable that it makes it hard for creators to continue making music in a meaningful way that's not disposable. So if you appreciate effort, if you appreciate good music, if you appreciate good content, then please consider supporting your favorite artist by purchasing an album, by downloading it legally, by streaming it, and just really showing up for, where you can for when the content is released. This is not like a do it for Eric Nam, but just a global kind of thing.
I'll say it. It's a stocking stuffer.
It's a great album, like great stocking stuffer. It's a great present. Tour tickets are great presents.
I'm going to play Congratulations when it hits midnight on New Year's.
Yes.
I feel like actually that would be really sick.
That'd be really sick. Great. Congratulations. And everyone's like, and 2019's finally leaving. But yeah. So hold on real quick.
Is there anything you have to plug?
Let me just. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It's a little bit deeper than most episodes, and it's just all about me. But it's my show, so I can do whatever I want. But I'm just going to title this the most important episode of Daebak Show ever. That should be the title.
Okay, I'll title that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Must listen, ! The most important episode
And we're going to put out an iPhone emergency alert.
Right. And we're not even going to say who this is about. We're just going to put it out there. It's our little TED Talk. But thank you for listening. Please, again, connect with us on our socials at Daebak Show. You can watch this video, of course, on youtube.com/Dive Studios, where we have videos from all of our amazing episodes across our network. But thank you guys again so much for the amazing response to the album. I hope you guys love it. Stream it, download it, buy it, and have a great day, week, or wherever you are.
Do you want to do any kind of giveaway of any kind? Maybe like tell people like leave your favorite lyric from the album in the music video thing, something like that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Also, as a giveaway, we're gonna give away some. Maybe I'll do like a signed CD or a signed post or something. But if you want to go ahead, go to the YouTube music video, right, and go ahead and leave a great message about the song, about the music video, something. And tag Dive Studios and hashtag Daebak Show, right? Hashtag Daebak Show, tag Dive Studios. And we'll try to send something out to a couple people who do that.
The congratulations.
Okay. So we're going to do a giveaway for this album and this song. If you guys go to the YouTube Congratulations music video and you guys hashtag Daebak Show and tag Dive Studios and leave a great comment about the song, about the music video, about your favorite lyric, whatever, we'll pick a few people and we'll send some stuff out your way. So thank you guys again so much for listening to this episode of Daebak Show. Hope you guys are happy, you're healthy, and you guys love the album. Have a great one. I'll see you guys next week on K-Pop Daebak with Eric Nam. Bye-bye. Hey guys, did you guys like that video? Then make sure you guys subscribe to Dive Studios YouTube channel and put your notifications on, because we got a lot more great content coming your way. Look at this video. See? Wow. And this is great too. Enjoy.